Homeschool mom, I see you. Juggling all the things, the lesson plans, the activities, the meal prep, everyone else's schedules. Sometimes forgetting your own. You want your kids to learn, but more than that, you want them to feel free and alive and thrive, to grow up curious and confident and connected to their most meaningful people. And yet some days it feels like no matter how hard you try, all you're doing is managing behavior, checking off the to-do list, and then realizing you didn't do it all, and keeping everyone in line. It can be overwhelming. I see it over and over again, and one of the biggest reasons I see homeschool moms feeling burned out is this. They haven't deschooled yet, or they need to deschool still. Today I want to discuss the idea of deschooling, not just for the kids, but for us as parents as well, and how that ties not just with the content of an education, but also in how we're showing up as parents to our kids. How to move from control to connection, to rebuild trust and lead your family in a way that actually works for both you and your kids. Welcome to the Homeschool Mom Wellness and Mindset channel, a space where overwhelmed homeschool moms can come to reclaim their voice, rediscover their spark, and lead their kids and their lives fully aligned from the inside out. I'm Teresa Wiedrich, graduated homeschool mom turned certified life coach in the homeschool mom space. I'm here to guide you in showing up whole, grounded, and fully you, even in the thick of homeschool life. Here we talk real stuff, the overwhelm, the guilt, the breakthroughs, and how to nurture yourself while you're nurturing your kids. And I'm so glad you're here. When Ivan Illich wrote Deschooling Society, he was the first person to ever use the word deschooling. He wasn't simply talking about removing our kids from classrooms. He was calling for a deeper freedom, a liberation from systems and institutions that rely on external authority instead of our own wisdom. That idea goes far beyond education. It extends into our homes and into how we parent. Many of us were schooled in control. We learned to measure, to correct, to manage outcomes. And without realizing it, those habits can follow us into our homes. In fact, they're likely to be guaranteed to be following us into our homes because they are what we know. We end up schooling our kids in compliance, even when we're trying to raise them for freedom. So what if deschooling could be part of our parenting experience too? What if leading our families didn't mean controlling them, but creating the kind of connection where our kids want to follow our lead? That's what I want to explore today. How to move from control to connection, drawing on the insights of Ivan Illich, Taylor Gatto, and Gordon Neufeld. Taylor Gatto, he is the author of many books, but one of them is Dumbing Us Down, the hidden curriculum of compulsory schooling. He spent decades in classrooms and observed something alarming. School doesn't just teach math or history, it teaches lessons about life. He called these the hidden curriculum. And there are 8 of them, the 8 hidden lessons of school. The first lesson he said school teaches is confusion, that knowledge is chopped into fragments rather than connected to life. The second thing it teaches is class position. Children learn their rank, and they learn to compare themselves constantly. The third thing they learn is indifference. When the bell rings, whatever mattered disappears. The fourth thing they learn is emotional dependency, waiting for others' approval before acting. The fifth thing they learn is intellectual dependency, believing learning only counts when someone else sanctions it. The sixth thing they learn is provisional self-esteem. So worth is conditional. It's always up for grading. The seventh thing they learn is surveillance. They get used to being watched, and it teaches them caution instead of curiosity. And the eighth and final thing they learn is delusion that learning must be externally managed, not internally motivated. If you want to read more about what Taylor Gatto teaches, what he learned about learning, you can find it in Dumbing Us Down, the hidden curriculum of compulsory schooling. Also, you can join us in the Confident Homeschool Mom Collective, where we discuss books just like these. Over time, these lessons shape our children's habits of mind and emotion and relationship. They also shaped ours. We became accustomed to looking outside ourselves for direction rather than trusting our own instinct. If we want to move from control to connection, rebuild trust with our kids, and lead our families in a way that actually works both for us and our kids, we need to learn to let go of things that don't work. So consider the 8 things that he emphasized in a school, the things that we learn in a school, and how advantageous they are to build connection and trust and purpose for ourselves and our kids. Do we want our kids to feel like knowledge is just chopped up fragments that aren't really connected to life? They're just stuff we got to memorize. Or do we want them to learn their rank and compare themselves constantly to others? Do we want them to live in indifference and pay attention only when someone else tells us to pay attention? Or become emotionally dependent, waiting for adults to give us direction in what matters most? Do we want them to pursue learning only because someone else sanctioned that learning? Or do we want them to find their worth when they discover their grades? Do we want them to learn because they were told to? Or do we want them to genuinely be internally motivated? John Taylor Gatto challenges the notion that all these things can be taught within an institution, within a school. If we want to move from control to connection, to rebuild trust, and lead our families in a way that actually works, let's consider how we're showing up in our homeschools and what influence we're having on our kids as we're going about our day-to-day. John Taylor Gatto also identified 8 tragic effects of taking kids' time. Essentially, he says that time over the 2 decades, almost 2 decades that kids are in school, they have had their time stolen. Why does he say that? Because someone is forcing them to spend it on abstractions instead of living purposefully. And the effects are that kids become indifferent to the adult world. They're no longer finding adults fascinating or seeking wisdom or learning from them. There's almost no curiosity. Their attention spans shrink because school conditions constantly interrupt them. They have a poor sense of the future. They live only in the present, disconnected from consequence. They're ahistorical. They lose touch with how the past actually shapes the present and future, despite memorizing dates and times. He saw that kids could be cruel. They lacked compassion because empathy requires time and relationship and reflection. They are uneasy with intimacy. They fear being authentic, having spent a lifetime performing for approval. They become materialistic. They equate worth with grades and possessions and status. And they're dependent and timid. They mask their insecurity with bravado, but they lack real fortitude. These effects aren't just byproducts of school. They're the result of a culture that fills children's time with things that prevent growth. And often we unknowingly bring these same patterns into our homes. So if Illich and Gatto show the damage done by control, by systems that steal time, steal curiosity, and steal connection, Gordon Neufeld shows the way back. Illich and Gatto reveal how kids are conditioned to depend on external authority. They live by other people's approval and disconnect from life. Gordon Neufeld, the author of Hold On to Your Kids, reminds us that kids aren't looking for equality with parents. They're looking for someone to follow. And true parental leadership doesn't come from control. It comes from connection. And I learned this one personally. I was taught in control. I assumed that I had to parent in control. And I learned the hard way that it doesn't work. Parental leadership comes from connection. When a child feels securely attached, they naturally want to orient toward the parent. Control demands compliance. True leadership flows from trust and connection or attachment. Deschooling parenting is about unlearning control-based habits and returning to authentic connection. Here are some ways to do that. Replace correction with curiosity. Instead of saying, "Why are you doing that?" ask what's happening for you right now. Listen actively before you respond. Collect before you direct, Gordon Neufeld says. Our goal is to validate their feelings so they feel known and understood. Collaborate on problem solving while still maintaining your mother role, your parent role. Invite their input without abdicating your guidance. At the end of the day, you make the choices, but you are advocating for the person right in front of you. Your goal is to connect with that person and to understand that person and lead the specific person in front of you. Allow natural consequences. Let mistakes teach lessons, but stay as present as you can as their secure anchor. These aren't permissive strategies, they're relational strategies. And I get that they sound a little out of the box if you're coming from a more control-based parenting approach. They certainly sounded weird to me. In fact, they sounded like they were abdicating real leadership. But I've learned that it's exactly the opposite. If you gain the heart of the child, you gain the capacity to lead them. They restore the parent as the secure base, the natural authority in the family. When we lead with attachment instead of control, you can watch your child shift in how they approach you. Children who resisted instruction now listen to you. Curiosity and creativity return for them. Home feels less like a classroom and more like a place of belonging. Parents rest more easily in leadership, and kids grow in confidence and self-direction. The very thing you want for them, the very thing that was stolen, time, curiosity, and freedom, can begin to bloom again for each of your kids. If you're ready to see your homeschool differently, to replace doubt with clarity and that feeling of pressure with more purpose, you can start deschooling your homeschool with my checklist. It'll help you identify which school mindsets are stressing you out, refocus on what really matters for your family, create space for connection and curiosity, and even feel good enough in your homeschool right now. You can grab that at my website, capturingthecharmedlife.com, or you can find it in the comments below. I've created other free resources for you to deschool your homeschool too. I've got a pre-recorded deschool training, or if you prefer, I've got a 5-day deschool challenge you can take at your leisure. And of course, here on YouTube, I've got an entire playlist dedicated to deschooling your homeschool mom mindset. Or if you like to keep it simple, just get that deschool your homeschool checklist. Whether you lean into child-inspired learning, or if you call it interest-led or self-directed learning, does not matter what it gets called. All I know is that the child is more at the center of the homeschool. You'll be less concerned about what you're not doing or not learning. As one mom shared with me recently, I needed to figure out how to meet my son's needs in our homeschool, to lean into child-led learning. I feel more confident in what homeschooling looks like and doesn't look like within my home. It will always be evolving, of course, but I feel more at peace. I'm a better detective with my kids to see what they value and care about. You want a homeschool that works for you and each of your homeschool kids. One that feels free and individualized and purposeful. When you begin to deschool your homeschool, how you're approaching the education, and also how you're approaching your kids as a parent, you will gain more freedom. As Illich meant it, it's not just about education. It's not deschooling education. It's about freedom. And that freedom begins when we stop schooling our children in control and start leading them in connection. So start small. Listen before you lead. Just ask yourself, how can I maintain connection here? Instead of looking for compliance, look for a way to build trust and connection. Because when you deschool your parenting, you're not losing your authority. You're reclaiming it in a most natural and really meaningful way. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. Remember that you're not alone on this homeschool journey. Even as we work to deschool our parenting, reclaim connection, and lead with love instead of control, you do have what it takes to show up whole, grounded, and confident for yourself and your family. If this episode spoke to you, don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you found value here, please share it with a friend who might need encouragement too. And if you want to go deeper, you can book your free Aligned Homeschool Reset session. The link is in the show notes. Until next time, take care of yourself, nurture that nurturer, and keep leading your family with confidence, clarity, and presence. You got this, girlfriend.